Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
He's alive!
Welcome to Where the Weird Ones Are.
Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out.
Powerful figures in Hollywood as well as powerful politicians who are in fact not human. They're reptiles or they're lizards or perhaps extraterrestrials.
I don't think it is a human. I think it's a Sasquatch.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Let's get weird.
What's up, you fucking weirdos? Welcome to another episode of Where the Weird Ones Are. My name is Kevin, but you probably already knew that, and if you didn't, now you do. Today's episode is a special one. It is number 67, and it is my Halloween special treat for all of you. So, happy birthday! Definitely meant to say Halloween. Anyways, I hope you all are out there having a phenomenal day, night, whatever time you listen to this, whatever time you go trick-or-treating with your kids, or you go to a Halloween party, you know, all that fantastic shit. I mean, I know when this comes out, it's going to be Monday, so the partying is probably 2 days ago on Saturday. Regardless, I have a few of my friends here to tell you some creepy stories, some urban legends, you know, just maybe some creepy encounters, things, you know, things that happen to them maybe. But if you had a creepy experience yourself and you want to be featured, or you want to shoot me an email just to tell me, you know, your creepy experience, I can also share it, just like the stories that we all share today. You know, if I get enough of them, I can make episodes of just telling creepy stories from the listeners. So, but yeah, I hope you guys are having a safe and fun Halloween. And I'm going to share a short story with you really quick before we get into other people's, which I'm also going to share some of my own short stories that I found across the internet throughout this episode anyway. But I'm gonna start it off with a story called This New Old House. So, my boyfriend and I just bought an old house. It's new to us, obviously old. He's in charge of the new construction, you know, converting the kitchen into the master bedroom, for instance, like while I'm on wallpaper removal duty. The previous owner papered every wall and ceiling. Removing it is brutal, but oddly satisfying. The best feeling is getting a long peel, similar to your skin when you're peeling from a sunburn. I don't know about you, but I kind of make a game of peeling, on the hunt for the longest piece before it rips. Under a corner section of paper in every room is a person's name and date. Curiosity got the best of me one night when I Googled one of the names and discovered the person was actually a missing person. The missing date matching the date under the wallpaper. The next day, I made a list of all the names and dates. Sure enough, each name was for a missing person with dates to match. We notified the police, who naturally sent out the crime scene team. I overheard one tech say, "Yep, it's human." Human? What's human? Ma'am, where is the material? you removed from the walls already. This isn't wallpaper you were removing. And with that, my friends, that was a creepy short story. So with that, first story is from my good friend Dayvid, Down the Rabbit Hole. Check out his merch store. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook, Deeper Down. He's a phenomenal person. Also, he's a co-host of One Nothing Podcast, so you should check that podcast out as well. And with that, my friends, let's get into it.
Hi friends, it's David from Down the Rabbit Hole. I have a story to tell you. It starts off as a true story, then it became a legend. It's David from Down the Rabbit Hole. Some people have accused me of being the Bunny Man. That couldn't be further from the truth. First off, this happened in the early 70s and I wasn't born yet. Also, I don't own a hatchet or kill children or people or rabbits. I'm just the keeper of the rabbit. The special one that makes rabbit holes just for you. Yeah, I'm weird. But aren't we all? The story takes place in Virginia, early 70s. The legend is there was a man in a bus traveling from one psych ward to another. The bus crashed somewhere in Virginia. Fairfax County, as a matter of fact. A lot of people escaped, a lot of crazy people, but they were able to round everyone up, except for one man. That man's name was Douglas J. Griffin. He was not well. He would roam the grounds Fairfax County, near a bridge. He would kill rabbits and eat them to survive. The Bunny Man settled around Clifton, Virginia, and he had an unhealthy obsession with rabbits. He also missed people. He missed civilization. And he is growing tired of living in this remote location, so he decides he needs to go into town. The Bunny Man survived by killing rabbits. For a long time, their corpses would just lying around this bridge, but then he became creative and would tie them from the top of the bridge so they were hanging. But of course this got boring to him. He needed to get to people, he needed to talk, so he got his bunny costume and his white bunny mask and he traveled into town. He would approach children, talk to them. He would get them to tell him where they lived. And then at night, he would go to their houses and kill their parents. And then he would take the children back to the bridge. There are a lot of reports of children hanging from the bridge underneath. And there were a lot of children. A lot of children. There were a lot of children. There were a lot of children. A lot of children. There are so many children. This, of course, is a legend. The Bunny Man did come from an actual case, actually several police reports and newspaper clippings, because there were reports of men dressed in bunny suits. The first such case was a car driving by this area and slowing down, and out of nowhere there was an attack with a hatchet and a man screaming, "You don't belong here. This is not your land." And when the people who were driving were able to look, they saw a man dressed in a bunny costume with a hatchet chasing their car. The second case was there was a building being built on the side of this road, and a couple were driving their car past it when they noticed a man dressed in a bunny suit hatcheting away at a pillar that was load bearing on this building, that was holding it together, and he was chopping away at it, just chopping away at it, just chopping away at it. They called the cops. By the time the cops got there, no Bunny Man. He was gone. But his evidence was left behind. The next case was of a couple driving down near the bridge, which is now Bunny Man Bridge. And they were just taking in the sights. It was beautiful. They were looking around. Everything just seemed so nice. And all of a sudden, some loud noise from the roof of their car, and when they looked up, they saw a hatchet that had been buried into the top of their car, the blade coming through. They started to drive away wildly when they could see a man chasing them dressed in a bunny suit. And that's the story of the Bunny Man. Is it real? Is there a real Bunny Man out there? Oh, forgot to tell you. Another part of the legend has it that the cops finally got a hold of this Bunny Man. They found where he was at, and they were chasing him. They were chasing him, and he was running. He was running. There was a train tracks that he was running on, and he didn't see that there was a train coming for him behind, and it hit him and killed him. And now, if you happen near the bridge, near the train tracks, you might actually see the Bunny Man standing. So now, if you're lucky, you'll see him in his Bunny Man suit holding an axe. If you're lucky. But if he happens to turn around and look you in the eye, you will not make it out alive.
I hate it when my brother Charlie has to go away. My parents constantly try to explain to me how sick he is, that I am very lucky for having a brain where all the chemicals flow properly to their destinations like undammed rivers. When I complain about how bored I am without a little brother to play with, they try to make me feel bad by pointing out that his boredom likely far surpasses mine considering his confinement to a dark room in an institution. I always begged for them to give him one last chance. Of course, they did at first. Charlie has been back home several times, each shorter in duration than the last. Every time, without fail, it all starts again. The neighborhood cats with gouged out eyes showing up in his toy chest. My dad's razors found dropped on the baby slide in the park across the street. Mom's vitamins replaced by bits of dishwasher tablets. My parents are hesitant now, using last chances sparingly. They say his disorder makes him charming, makes it easy for him to fake normalcy, and to trick the doctors who care for him into thinking he is ready for rehabilitation. That I will just have to put up with my boredom if it means staying safe from him. I hate it when Charlie has to go away. It makes me have to pretend to be good until he's back. All right, friends. The next two stories is with Phil, Exploring with Phil on Instagram. He's also has a YouTube channel, Canadian Dutch Boys Studios. You can find. I was actually featured on his latest video, and we actually caught some pretty fucking spooky and interesting shit. So I think you should check it out. Also, right after that is the oldest sibling of three siblings walk into the bar. Her name is Deshae, and I hope you enjoy both their stories.
What's up, guys? It's Phil from Exploring with Phil, and this is my first true life paranormal encounter I ever had in my life. So right before my 4th birthday party, in the house we used to live in at the time when this transpired, it was a 2-story home. First floor was a kitchen, living room, my bedroom, and upstairs was my parents' bedroom. It's kind of an open floor plan. So it was very customary at that time for me to play by myself. At that time, my brother was much, much younger than me. I played by myself quite a bit, which is very normal, and I had was very normal for me to go off and play by myself with my toys. And so on this very day, I was upstairs in my parents' bedroom by myself. My mom's downstairs with my brother, and they're just them two downstairs. I'm upstairs by myself playing, doing my thing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear like a woman's voice. Now, when I was younger, I used to be able to remember what the woman said. Now, as an adult, I don't remember. It's very unclear what the woman said. But, so I hear a woman talk, and then quickly followed by like what sounds like glass breaking. And so I hear those two things. I don't see anyone. I know there's not anyone supposed to be up there. So as like a 3.5-year-old, almost 4-year-old at this point, I'm terrified. So I run downstairs. I tell my mom what happens. We go upstairs. Of course, there's nothing. We don't see anyone. There's no one up there. There's no glass broken. Just a very, very strange experience. But it definitely stuck with me because a few weeks later on my birthday party, which we have on camera, before the birthday party, I'm hanging out with my cousins. And obviously I must have mentioned it to them because my cousins were joking around with me and doing whistling noises, and we were all running away pretending it was the ghost. And so obviously it definitely stuck with me for a long time because it's still a story that I remember very vividly. Obviously not the detail of what the woman said. Obviously I wish I would have known, but that was my first paranormal experience. Very, very weird. I can't explain it. But anyway, that was it.
Hello, my name is Deshae, and I am the oldest sibling from the Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar podcast. And today I'm going to share some stories with you of, these are some accounts that people have shared of when they have experienced sleep paralysis. BuzzFeed did an article on this, and they got quite a few people to tell them their stories. And so these are them. There was something at the end of my bed watching me. It felt like I was being dragged towards them. I remember trying to scream, but no noise was coming out. I had to slowly fight to get control of my body. It was one of the scariest experiences of my life. I've been having the same dream regularly since I was a child. I wake up, I'm in my bed, there's someone in the house. I can hear the footsteps moving around, coming up the stairs slowly. If I stay still, maybe the person won't come for me. I can hear him coming down the hall, and I can hear his shadow. He's a minotaur. He has a knife and he's coming for me. I scream. I wake up relieved, except there's someone at the bedroom door, and this time I can't scream. Oh, no, thank you. I get sleep paralysis quite a lot, but you don't get used to it. It's just intense pressure holding you down. I can't speak. I can usually see the shadow of a dark figure out of the corner of my eye, but I can't turn my head to look at it, and that's pretty terrifying. Luckily for me, my partner is now used to this and we have a code. I start breathing really quickly and loudly, and if he notices that, then he helps snap me out of it. That's really nice to have someone to help you. I couldn't move. My chest felt crushed. It was hard to breathe, and I could hear loud hammering a few feet away. A robed figure sat on my chair and slowly moved towards me. As it got closer, a menacing skull appeared. The only thing I could move were my eyeballs. No, thank you. It happens every time I fall asleep on my back. I wake up and I can't tell if my eyes are open or shut, but I can see my whole room. A dark presence is lurking on top of my wardrobe, and as soon as I notice it, I try and scream, but I can't scream and I can't move. The darkness slithers down the side of my wardrobe, across the floor, and looms over the end of my bed. Then it creeps all over me, trying to invade every orifice. I feel an immense pressure, like it has pinned me down, and it's pushing its way into my ears, eyes, and mouth. Oh no. The darkness then screams a terrible screech into my face, and I try to scream back, but eventually I manage to jerk my head, and everything disappears, and I'm alone in the darkness. It is the most terrifying of experiences. I can only imagine. I get it when I have had too much sleep. Only time I was really freaked out was when I thought I could hear chatter in the background. Then I could feel someone lay next to me sleeping, the quilt just moving with each breath. I could feel the weight behind me in bed snoring. I started to panic as I knew no one was out in the house. Eventually, I woke up and moved back slightly to feel no one was there. It took me a while to get back to sleep that night. I usually see someone come into my room with a crazed grin, staring at me. I try to scream, but I can't. They lean over and start suffocating me. It's a sense of overwhelming helplessness. The whole time I'm just repeating to myself, wake up, wake up, wake up. Oh no. Excuse me. I get it every now and then, but I know how to deal with it now. The absolute worst was when I was staying in a hotel with my boyfriend at this time. I remember trying to scream and move, anything to get his attention, but nothing I did would make a sound. It was terrifying. Then I got up to tell him what happened, and he bolted upright and strangled me. And then I finally woke up, incredibly shaken, but glad it wasn't real. Honestly, one of the scariest situations in my life, and it wasn't even reality. The first time it happened to me was when I went in for a nap during the day. I was lying on my side, facing away from my door, when I woke up to the sound of my door closing. I tried to turn around to see who had come into my room, but I couldn't move. My eyes were wide with terror. I could see everything in my room. I heard this thing walk around my room. Then it sat on my bed, and I could feel the bed dip from its weight. It then shuffled toward me, and it felt like it began to spoon me, and it was extremely tall. I was trying to move so hard, but I was just lying still. The thing started breathing on my neck and tickling my back. It then stood up and left after a few minutes. That was the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. That's creepy. It usually feels like someone is sitting on my chest, choking me, and I see staring faces right above mine, laughing or screaming gibberish. I started experiencing sleep paralysis during the exam period of my first year at university, a very stressful time for me. The first time it happened, I woke up with the feeling I was being suffocated. My bed was literally swallowing me up. The more I panicked and the faster my pulse and breathing became, the quicker I was disappearing into the bed. I couldn't move a muscle. My attempts to scream were just silent. After I calmed myself down, I kind of drifted out of my paralyzed state and woke up completely. The second time it happened, I awoke to see a very tall man standing by my door, holding something behind his back and moving towards me very slowly. Once again, I couldn't move and couldn't make a sound. It is definitely the most terrifying experience. Once I fell asleep on the couch, watching some detective show, I woke up and sat up, and I was completely out of my body. I kept trying to lay back down and into my body and wake myself up, but I just stayed asleep. I stood up and looked out of the back door, and it was completely dark. Then I went to the opposite side of the room and looked out of the front window, and it was bright and sunny, and there was a little old lady sitting under a tree by the lake, and I was like, WTF. I spent the next 10 minutes laying down, then sitting back up, trying to attach myself back to my body and shake myself awake. I thought if I didn't get back in, my body would die and my soul would wander. I didn't want to leave my living room. Okay, last one. I woke up on my back, paralyzed, and swear there was an old lady sat at the side of my bed, just smiling at me. I have never been so terrified. And there you have it. Sleep tight. Happy Halloween.
My daughter woke me around 11:50 last night. My wife and I had picked her up from her friend Sally's birthday party, brought her home, and put her to bed. My wife went into the bedroom to read while I fell asleep watching the Braves game. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging my shirt sleeve, "guess how old I'm going to be next month?" "I don't know, Beauty," I said as I slipped on my glasses. "How old?" She smiled and held up 4 fingers. "It is 7:30 now. My wife and I have been up with her almost 8 hours. She still refuses to tell us where she got them." I don't know about you, but stories with children especially creep me out. And the next story is from a woman who I absolutely adore, and I hope you enjoy the story that she has to tell. Her name is Amanda. She goes by Frankie. You can find her at _Northern Siren on Instagram.
Hi there, my name is Frankie, and Kevin has asked me to tell a creepy story. So as an avid reader, I have decided to read a ghost story for you. It will be out of this book here. It's called Great Canadian Ghost Stories by Barbara Smith, and this one is called Spirits with Your Meal. Gastown in downtown Vancouver, British Columbia, is said to be the most haunted neighborhood in the city, and the delightfully decorated old spaghetti factory does its part to hold up that reputation. The building itself has had a long and colorful history. It was a grocer's, a train station, and a factory. Then, during its conversion to a restaurant, the new owners brought in an old trolley bus to use as a unique seating area. Many other old objects have since been brought in to add interest to the decor. All of these factors are an invitation to a haunting. Apparently, the invitation was accepted. 4 ghosts have been identified. None of them seem to have any connection to or even any awareness of the others. The Little Red Man is the most troublesome spirit in the place. He is also extremely easily identified because, as his name suggests, he is not very tall, and he is seen wearing a red shirt and red long johns. He's clearly aware of the people working around him because he often calls them by name. One of the Little Red Man's favorite haunts is the woman's washroom, where he seems to thoroughly enjoy startling patrons before disappearing from sight. One woman was especially quick with her phone and took a picture of the strange apparition. When she got back to her table and looked at her screen, there was a swirling black cloud where the apparition had been. The most troublesome ghost is that of a little boy, who appears very real. With his old-fashioned clothing, however, he is decidedly out of place. Like Little Red Man, this childish entity seems aware of his surroundings and even calls some staff members by their names. A psychic who visited the restaurants believed that, in life, the entity's name was Edward. He is a mischievous fellow who sometimes interferes with the staff's work. After the restaurant closes at night, the staff takes time to set up the tables for the next day's lunch rush. Apparently, this routine does not please this mischievous wraith, because he has been known to bend the cutlery that has just been set out on the tables. The boy's image is so lifelike that a server once chased him to the restaurant door, where she confronted him. Just after his lifeless eyes met her gaze, the young woman ran to the manager and quit on the spot. Another server, this one with nerves of steel, actually pursued the ghostly urchin and, when she caught up to him, asked him what he wanted. The ghost replied, "Put on some music so the other ghosts will come out." As soon as he spoke, he disappeared. Perhaps one of the other ghosts that the little spectre had in mind was the phantom of a little girl. The child's revenant sits quietly holding the string of a balloon. When a server asks her why she was sitting there, she answered quietly that she was waiting for her mother. When a group of students tried to make a film about the ghost in the old spaghetti factory, they asked for the ghost's cooperation. Their request was met with a series of loud sounds and a severe drop in the room's temperature. That one time, at least, the spirits were accommodating. The trolley car, old number 53, is home to the ghost of a trolley conductor in full old-fashioned uniform. Years ago, a quick-thinking witness took the ghost's photograph, and a framed enlargement of that print hangs proudly on the restaurant's wall. The spirit is thought to be that of a conductor who died in an accident close to nearby Waterfront Station, which has been called the most haunted building in Vancouver. Waterfront Station is an impressive old building dating back to 1914, when traveling by train was considered the height of elegance. In addition to its use as a train station, the enormous building also housed fancy restaurants, a dance hall, and prestigious offices. And also, it would seem, virtually all those areas are haunted. A trio of apparitions is often seen there late at night. The specters are completely benign and merely sit quietly together on a bench, as if they are waiting for their train to arrive. One night, a security guard working the graveyard shift thought he heard music coming from somewhere in the building. He followed the sound to the station's former dance hall, where the distinctive strains of 1920s tunes echoed throughout the room. The man scanned the room in disbelief until he spotted a vague figure off in a corner. It was the image of a woman, dressed in period clothing and dancing a solitary waltz. He summoned his courage and took a step into the room, intending to approach her, but as he did, the music stopped and the vision of the woman disappeared. She may have been the ghost that another guard had saw when he walked into a storage room. That apparition held out her hand to the man, but he didn't accept her overture. Instead, he ran down the hall as quickly as he could. One of those storage rooms was the setting for a truly bizarre sight, even by supernatural standards. A man once made his way into the room full of old desks. When he reached the far wall of the room, several of the desks lifted up and moved around. Some piled themselves on top of one another, but the worst one, from the witness's point of view, was the one that blocked the doorway. With adrenaline surging, the trap man made his way to the door, shoved the desk out of his way, and ran along the hall and down the stairs as fast as he could. In his haste, he probably didn't hear the phantom footfalls that are often heard in that corridor and stairwell. A few years ago, 2 office workers were chatting in the station when a woman joined them. Neither of them had recognized her, so they finished their conversation and turned towards the stranger. They both described her as being attractive, with long auburn hair and wearing a fancy blue blouse that was decidedly out of fashion. The image met each of their gazes before telling them, "I'll come back another time." With that, the pretty woman vanished. It seems the ghosts at Waterfront Station have earned the building its reputation as the most haunted in Vancouver. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you guys have a terrific day. Happy Halloween, and we'll chat soon. Bye.
Yo. So, the next 2 stories come from Sage and Storm, the middle and the youngest sibling of three siblings walk into a bar. Um, I love their podcast, so I definitely think you guys should check them out if you haven't already. You can follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm pretty sure you can listen to their podcast wherever you find podcasts at. I've become pretty good friends with them. I share their stuff, they share my stuff. They've been on the show, I've been on their show, so yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this episode so far. And I apologize for my mic echoing. I have no idea why that's doing that, but it is what it is. So I do think for some of the stories it makes it sound a little bit more creepy, but at the same time it's a little annoying. So I just wanted to throw that out there that I apologize for that. So the next two stories, we have Sage first, and then it's Storm, both from three siblings walk into a bar. Check that shit out.
Hi, I'm Sage, the middle sibling from Three Siblings Walked Into a Bar podcast, and I am going to tell you a few urban legends today. I know there's like a ridiculous amount of urban legends out there. These are just ones that like stuck with me, I guess, because I heard a bunch of these when I was a kid, and I think about a lot of them more than I probably should, but there's quite a few of them. So most of these I'm sure you guys have heard about. The first one is going to be the Cropsey of Staten Island. So basically, it's a mysterious man that lives in the shadows, and he snatches children. So often the parents in the area would tell their kids this story about this guy because they were just trying to get them to stay out of trouble or like keep them from running away. Unfortunately, the Cropsey in Staten Island is based off of a true story. So the story that they would tell their children, which is so messed up, is that there was an escaped mental asylum patient who had a hook for a hand, and he would hide out in an abandoned Willowbrook State School, and he would just wait there, waiting to kidnap children. So the real story of where this came from was that there was a janitor at that school, and he worked for Willowbrook State School while it was still open, and his name was Andre Rand, and he was a janitor there, and it closed in 1987, and he was suspected of actually kidnapping some of the children, and he was found guilty of the crime in 1988 as well as in 2004. This next one is from my hometown. So I did hear about this one while I was growing up. It's from Arkansas. So it is known that in Arkansas there is sightings of a part werewolf, part man wandering the streets of a little town called Quitman. So the truth behind this story is even more messed up than what people see nowadays. The truth is that in the 1950s, there was a little boy, and his name was Gerald Bettis. And he was known in the town for torturing and killing stray animals. As he got older, if any of us know anything about serial killers, it obviously turned to people. So his father was found dead in 1981, and then his mother had been kept prisoner in their home until she was saved years later. And then she testified against her son in court. So the legend goes that his ghost is the one that's wandering around, and it wanders around on all fours, and it looks like a really big, hairy dog, which is terrifying. This next one is another just kind of apparition kind of legend. So there's a legend of a disfigured man lurking in the tunnels of Pittsburgh. The tale is that there is a man with a severely burned face who sets up in abandoned train tunnels, and while he's down there, he can basically control the electricity. So because of his burn, he's able to control electricity now. So this was a story to basically keep kids out of the tunnels under Pittsburgh, but the story is based off of a man, and his name is Raymond Robinson. And Raymond did actually suffer a really bad burn from an electrical line, and he would only really come out at night. because of the burn. But the thing is that he was actually just like a really cool dude. He was just like a normal guy. And he would, the teenagers in the area would try and take pictures with him. And he was very nice. And he would like take pictures with them and talk about what happened and all that kind of stuff. So that legend is not as scary to me because it's he actually ended up just being a cool dude. Now this one, I know that everybody's heard this at least once, and I think about this on a daily basis. So this one, there's a woman and she's driving down a highway in the middle of the night, and she's the only one on the road. And then all of a sudden, a car comes up behind her and starts flashing their brights and honking on their horn, trying to get her attention. And she's obviously freaked out. She's in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, and she was the only one. And now there's a car like breaking out behind her. So she speeds up and she's like, I just got to get home. And the whole way home, he's following her. He's flashing her the brights and he's honking the horn. And she finally gets home. And the guy that's following her gets out of the car and he's like, you need to get in your house, lock your door, and call the police. So she does, and it ends up that there was a man in her back seat, and the driver that was behind her was trying to warn her that there was someone in her back seat trying to kill her. I know that this isn't like inherently super terrifying, but I check my back seat every single time I get in my car now because of this story. I heard it so many times when I was a kid that it really messed me up. This next one is another one that I'm sure we've all heard as kids, and another one that really messed me up as a kid. So I can't walk into bathrooms with the doors, with the lights off anymore. Like the light has to be on for me to walk into a bathroom. And I firmly believe that it's because of this and my sisters, what they did to me as a kid. So this next one is known as Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary is basically what you do is if you go into your bathroom or into any room with a mirror, a dark room, and say Bloody Mary 3 times into the mirror with just a lit candle, you can summon her spirit. So if it's done correctly, what happens, apparently, according to the legend, is that a ghost of a woman completely covered in blood will show up in your mirror. Some people do say that she can reach through the mirror and drag you to the underworld, which is insanely terrifying. But the Bloody Mary is based off of real people, a real person. There's 2 different people. There's 2 different trains in which people think that this story came from. There's 2 different Marys. The first Mary is Mary Wath of the Salem witch trials. And then the second one is Queen Mary the First of England. So honestly, it could be really either one of those. This next one I know is a movie as well. So this one turned into the big screen. The legend is it's a babysitter. Obviously, it seems to be a good theme for most of these urban legends. But she had already put the kids to sleep, and she was watching TV. She's just hanging out in the house. And the phone rings, like the house phone rings in the house. And she's like, she answers it and there's nobody there. So she hangs up and she's like, okay, that was weird. And she continues watching TV and then it rings again. And she answers it and she's like, hello, like, what's up? And there's a man on the other end and he asks, have you checked on the children? And so she hangs it up and she's like, oh, it was just the dad like playing a prank or like checking on the kids. Like she doesn't know. She's not too worried about it until the phone rings again. And then she answers it and it's the same man and he asks the exact same thing. So she freaks out, obviously, and calls the police. And the police somehow are able to track the call that she got, and they tell her that it's coming from inside of the house. So she goes upstairs and she finds the kids that she's babysitting have all been murdered, and there's a man standing there completely covered in blood. Now, this one was made into a movie. This one also terrified me as a kid, even if I wasn't like a babysitter. It's more of like the home invasion type situation. I think those are the ones that really terrify me. But I'm gonna stop rambling about my fears. Those are some urban legends that I think about a lot more than I probably should.
Hi, my name is Storm. I am one of the siblings from Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar podcast. I wanted to tell you guys a little urban legend from my area, and it is about the Candy Lady. It starts out with Clara Crane and Leonard Crane, who had gotten married and lived in a small town called Terrell, Texas. They had a 5-year-old daughter named Marcella Crane. So Leonard was a farmer in the area, and Marcella loved being out there with him. She always wanted to help. She always wanted to be out in the field, and she wanted to farm with her dad. One day in 1893, when she was out helping her dad, there was a tragic accident that did cause her death. Obviously, her mother Clara was completely distraught by this, and she did not take her passing well. Clara also found out that Leonard was drunk at the time of Marcella's death, and at that point always blamed him for her dying. 2 years later, in 1895, she was still unable to forgive her husband. Clara could not take the pain and anger she had for Leonard any longer. She saw him eating his little favorite caramel candies and decided that she was going to kill him. She took his caramel candies and laced them with poison. She gave him the candies, and he died soon after. A few days after his death, their neighbor came to check on them and realized that she was acting really weird, very strange, and very frazzled. So she decided to call the county sheriff's department. The sheriff came to do a well check, and during the visit, Clara started getting very, very aggressive with him to the point that he took her into custody. When the sheriff was looking through Clara's house, he did end up finding Leonard's body. She was eventually charged with first-degree murder. She pled grief-related insanity, and instead of going to jail, she was placed in the North Texas Lunatic Asylum, which is now known as the Terrell State Hospital. In 1899, she was released due to overcrowding and was never heard from or seen again. Well, maybe. In 1903, children started going missing on and around the Crane property, and the local sheriff and parents were completely stumped. There was absolutely no clues. There was no leads. There was absolutely nothing but the missing children. So in the middle of the night, someone was leaving candy on the children's windowsills. None of them told their parents or were really worried about it. As time went on, the candies started being left with notes. Some of them would say, "From the Candy Lady." Some of them would say, "Come and play." The children still really weren't telling their parents. I mean, why would they? The candy was good. The handwriting looked nice, so it couldn't have been bad. The children would open their windows, they would eat the candy, and the Candy Lady would snatch them and feast on their now sugary blood until there was none left. The children, when they got older, had started telling their parents little by little the candy that they were receiving and the notes that they were receiving. And the parents immediately were terrified that it was Clara and she was taking and poisoning the children. After they were told, the old Crane farm was searched repeatedly, but there was never a trace of Clara or the missing children. When everyone was in terror that their children would be the next victim, the sheriff, who had tirelessly been working on these cases, did go missing. He was later found dead in a ditch with forks in his eyes and candy shoved in his pockets. The town thought that they might get some kind of answers now that there was a body, and a local farmer nearby started finding individually wrapped teeth in candy wrappers on his farm. Unfortunately, all of this led to no answers, nothing. They were still never able to find the missing children, and they never found out who murdered the sheriff. The children did stop going missing right after the sheriff was murdered. Was it Clara looking for revenge? Was it her spirit looking for a child to replace the one that she was missing? We'll never know. But either way, don't take candy from strangers. Happy Halloween.
There was no pearly gate. The only reason I knew I was in a cave was because I had just passed the entrance. The rock wall rose behind me with no ceiling in sight. I knew this was it. This was what religion talked about, what man feared. I had just entered the gate to hell. I felt the presence of the cave as if I was a living, breathing creature. The stench of rotten flesh overwhelmed me. Then there was the voice. It came from inside and all around. Welcome. Who are you? I asked, trying to keep my composure. You know. The thing answered. I did know. You are the devil, I stuttered, quickly losing my composure. Why me? I've lived as good as I could. The silence took over the space as my words died out. It seemed like an hour went by before the response came. What did you expect? The voice was penetrating, but patient. I don't know. I never believed any of this, I uttered. Is that why I'm here? Silence, I continued. They say the greatest trick you ever pulled was convincing the world you don't exist. No, the greatest trick I have ever pulled is convincing the world that there isn't an alternative. There is no God. I shivered. The cave trembled with the words. I am God. All right, my friends. The next two stories are from two phenomenal women with podcasts as well. So first you'll hear from Lavendar, who is early on Wednesday. And then right after will be Amanda, the host of the phenomenal 1-0 podcast. Obviously, I want you to check both of these podcasts out. They are both very near and dear to my heart. I love them so much. Both of them they're great people. Good friends to have in your corner for sure. So please check their stuff out, and I hope you enjoy the stories that they have to share with you. So,
hey y'all, it's Lav from Early on Wednesday, and today I am going to talk to you all a little bit about some spooky stories. These are my personal encounters with some of the weird, bizarre, and terrifying. So I have two pretty short, spooky stories that I have experienced. If you haven't went and listened to my Shadow People episode, then this will be new for you. If you have listened to my Shadow People episode, you probably heard this one. I can't remember if I talk about it on that episode or not, but here it is anyway. So my spookiest encounter with my shadow people was one night. I can't remember if my daughter was home or not, but it's late and I'm essentially by myself. My daughter was like 5 at the time, so she's not much help. And I'm in bed, I'm laying in bed and I'm reading, and I roll over and I shut off the light, and I feel something, like I feel the weight of something climb into the bed. And I'm hollering at the dog, thinking it's my dog getting into the bed to get off the bed. And instead it just kind of crawls further onto the bed and closer to me. And so at this point I flip on the lights, and I am face to face with just the cat-like blank black face. Of course, I freak out. I fall out of the bed, and I'm laying on the floor, and it leans over the edge of the bed and looks up at me, and I go to stand up, and that's when it kind of just disappears. But that was the most terrifying, probably, experience that I had with the shadow people. Out of all the months that they were interested in me for whatever reason, that was the closest that this shadow person came to me. And it was weird. Like, there wasn't any breath. That was the one thing, like, I really remember about it, is something that close you would feel them breathe on you. But no, there was no breath. I couldn't hear it breathing. There was no noise associated with it at all. It was just the weight of it. And it was like black latex, like mask that you would wear for, some fun time with cat ears. That's what it reminded me of. And let's see. My next spooky story would be, this one's a little bit longer. So I grew up in Colorado, and I grew up on the Santa Fe Trail. And so that was the wagon trail that went to Santa Fe. I don't know where it originated. I probably knew at some point, but who the fuck cares? So it was the wagon trail for that went to Santa Fe. So there's lots of like burial sites and stuff along this Santa Fe Trail, from people that died of dysentery and things of that nature. So in the town that I grew up in, we have one of those cemeteries. And it was actually split into two cemeteries. There was like a children's side and then an adult side. Majority of the year, the children's side is overgrown with rose bushes. So bizarre. But this one year, for whatever reason, they trimmed it all back. Now, the running ghost story is there's all these old toys. Like, there's cribs, like old metal cribs over all the gravestones, which makes it extra creepy. But then there's also toys. And so the story is if you take one of the toys, the ghost will follow you home. So it's wintertime. It's snowy out. It's not actively snowing, but there is snow on the ground. And in order to get into the child side, there's like this little creek. It's more like a drainage ditch. Really probably could have hopped across it, but there was boards laid down, so we just walked across the boards. It's nighttime. I'm with a group of my friends, and we were playing Truth or Dare. Somebody got dared to go take a toy from this. So we drive out there in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know, it's probably midnight or so, and we cross this little bridge and go into the child side of the cemetery, and we're kind of just wandering around and everything, and somebody takes the person that got dared takes the toy out of one of the graves. It's like this little wooden train or something. I can't really remember exactly what she took. And we're leaving, and as we're leaving, everybody kind of starts panicking, and we hear like giggling, and we hear like running, like the sounds of feet running. And so we all panic and run across the little bridge and jump in the car and go home. And then the next morning, the girl's like seriously panicking, and she's like, we have to go back. I have to take this back. And so we go back to the little cemetery, and as we're getting ready to cross the bridge, on the other side, so like on the one side of the bridge where we're standing, we cross over the bridge into the cemetery, and as we're crossing the bridge, standing on the edge of the ground where the bridge would meet the ground in the snow is 2 bare feet prints. And they were small, Like, I have pretty small feet, and they were like half the size of mine. So, like, maybe a 3 or 4 year old size feet, and they were bare. You could see the toe prints and everything. And you could see them, like, along the side of our footprints leaving. And so that was super creepy. She would never even go down that back road ever again after this. She would not go back there ever again. But so there was that. And so I guess some folklore and legends maybe do hold some truth. I do have one more. This was my favorite ghost story to tell at like sleepovers and, you know, around the campfire. I think at one point I did look it up, and there was some sort of truth behind it, but of course it's always exaggerated, and I really can't remember. It's been a long time, but maybe I will look it up and find out what the true story is behind this one. Now, this didn't happen to me. This is one that I'm not even sure where I heard it, but it has always been my favorite go-to spooky, scary story. So the story goes that there's this teenage girl, and she lives with her mom, dad, blah, 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 whatever. She's the only child. Her parents had gone out for a date night or something along those lines, and they're gone all night. Now, she's a teenager. I don't even know. Let's say she's 16. And so they're going to be gone the entire night. She's got this big dog that, you know, it's her dog. It sleeps in her room, all this stuff. So nobody's concerned about leaving her home alone. Well, throughout the night, she starts hearing weird noises in the house and, you know, spooking herself. She's like, this is the first time my parents have ever not planned on coming home, and I'm just spooking myself. And she starts thinking she's seeing faces outside the windows, and she's hearing doors close and stuff. And so she's panicking and, you know, convinces herself, talks herself out of it. Now, this was before cell phones. So she, you know, calls her parents' pager, and, you know, they call her back, and they tell her, you know, you're home alone. Like, you're not used to being alone. It's a different type of silence when you're home alone. So she agrees with them, goes about her evening, and eventually goes to bed. Throughout the night, she keeps waking herself up, being startled by noises that she's never heard before throughout the night. And like she's always done since she was little, she would lean over the edge of the bed, and her dog would nuzzle her hand and let her know that he was still there with her, and she would be able to go back to sleep. And so she keeps waking up throughout the night to this dripping noise, you know, drip, drip, drip. And she would lay there for a while and listen to it. Drip, drip, drip. So she would roll over and, you know, just lower her arm over the side of the bed, and her dog would, you know, kind of hit her, you know, nuzzle it, hit her hand with its nose, all this kind of stuff, lick her hand, and she would roll over and go back to sleep. Well, a couple hours later, she wakes up again, and she's like, did I leave a faucet on? Like, what is dripping? She wakes up to the drip again. And this time she leans over, and the dog's not there. She doesn't get the nuzzle. She doesn't get the lick. So she's like laying in bed thinking, okay, do I hear him? She's listening to see if she can hear him getting some water or walking around the house, or listening to see if she can hear the doggy door. She starts hollering his name. Nothing. She can't hear anything. The only thing she can hear is the drip, drip, drip. She gets up to investigate and, you know, goes around the house looking at the faucet. She starts in the kitchen. No, that's not on. Can't find the dog. She goes to the hall bathroom. Nothing in there is on. Can't find the dog. And so she's like, well, what's left? Like, where's my dog? And what's on? What's left on? Well, water is running. And so she goes into her parents' bedroom, into the master bath, and she finds her dog hanging in the shower, and the drip noise is the dripping blood. And written on the shower wall is, people can lick too. And with that, I'm going to let you go and enjoy the rest of these spooky stories. Early on Wednesday is out.
Happy Halloween! I am Amanda from One Nothing Podcast, and I am here today to share the very tragic story on the 1 year anniversary of Kimberly Dawn Morris's passing. So I'm going to go back just a year to 2022, October 29th. A Good Samaritan was walking down a rural road in McLean, Texas, which is a very rural area on its own, and found the body of a woman who he had proposed was stabbed to death based on his witnessing of the injuries. So he calls the police show up, fire and EMS are there already on the scene conducting their portion of the investigation, so the police step in and start conducting their portion, and they find poor Kimberly's body naked from the waist down, shoes, socks, pants, underwear, and multiple lacerations, and immediately based on what they see, they're thinking that this is potentially a homicide. So they get her body into the morgue and they begin their autopsy, and they release their findings a little while later that they had suspicion to believe that the injuries were caused by an animal attack. And since there was no witnesses to the animal attack, they didn't know what kind of animal, which is strange to me because last year we definitely had the technology to determine what kind of animal caused an attack. So they released their findings to the family that they believe it was an animal attack, and right away her daughter Summer Mahmoodi has said, no way, there's no way this was an animal attack. And to quote her, she said, how could a dog or a cat take off her pants, socks, boots, underwear? Not only that, but put them all in a mud puddle together 10 feet away. It doesn't make any sense. So the police came back that they closed their investigation, that the autopsies concluded what it concluded, and they're not going any further into it. And of course the family's not satisfied with this. To make matters worse, only a few weeks after that, strange signs started appearing throughout McLean, especially on telephone poles and trees, that warned of 2 killer dogs that lived in the area and wrote, they will attack, shoot to kill, they killed Kim. So somewhere out there's someone who's speculating that 2 dogs, domestic dogs, killed Kim, which if it were an animal attack is not outside of possibility, because in rural areas there are issues with dogs and they tend to pack up stray dogs and they can be very dangerous in that aspect, even though they're domesticated. The other potential is black bear and mountain lion based on the area, both of which aren't likely because she wasn't predated upon. So very unusual for an animal to attack, rip off your clothing, but then not eat you. That does not make sense. It does not line up. So needless to say, to this day, there's no idea who's posting these signs in McLean, warning of 2 killer brown dogs, and the police aren't further investigating to look into anything more. Now, her death was concluded, her autopsy report was produced on October 31st, but she passed, they think, sometime October 29th. So today, the day that I'm recording this, is the 1 year anniversary of Kimberly Dawn Morris's passing. And I just wanted to draw attention to this. I know it's a short story, but it's definitely suspicious, and I definitely think there's more that needs to be investigated about this, and I do believe the family deserves some justice because the family has other children, and they are really worried, rightfully so, that they could be sitting at their child's track meet one day and be shoulder to shoulder with the killer and not even know it. So it is very suspicious. I definitely think this sounds more of a homicide. There was no real reporting done on if they had done any investigation into whether this was a sexual assault, considering the nature of her clothing having been removed. But unfortunately, the family is still pushing for justice, and the police department and authorities are just not working with them. So I'm hoping that this gets to some ears who potentially can help look into this more, and hopefully give the Morris and Mahmoodi family some peace. Happy Halloween! That was a depressing one, I know. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Well, everybody, that is the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I am still fucking sorry for this goddamn echo in my microphone. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the show. Like, follow, share, subscribe, do all that fantastic shit. Leave a rating and or a review wherever you can. Obviously, I don't expect you to. Please check out the Etsy, etsy.com/shop/where the weird ones are. There are no ads in this episode, so check out deeperdown.store, check out etsy.com/shop/heal with Christina, as well as the fineartmedium.com. Those are my friends, and I do believe they deserve all of the success in the motherfucking world. Also, 1-0 has just dropped their Patreon, and obviously their free episodes are fucking phenomenal. So please, if you enjoy their show when you check it out, because you're gonna, check out their Patreon, because it's fucking high level premium content. But yeah, so do all that motherfucking shit. And I hope you're having a fun, fantastic, safe Halloween. And make sure you check that fucking candy if you're taking your kids out. So, with that, my friends, if you're interested in being featured on this show, or if you just want me to tell your story, you can email me your stories, and I can compile them into an episode much like this one. But, my friends, other than that, obviously I gotta tell you where to send your stories if you feel so inclined to do so. It's wheretheweirdonesiare@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram where _theweirdonesiare. I'm most active on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook, obviously, where the weird ones are. You can also find me personally on Facebook, but doesn't mean I'm going to add you. So, I only add people I know. Sorry. But with that being said, you want to be featured or you just want to tell me a story, those are the ways to get in contact with me. So, with that, my friends, question everything and stay weird.